Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's forum. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Amy Nieves. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a resident of Philadelphia, and I have dedicated my work to the disability justice and activism space, both professionally and personally. I'm a person who's unilaterally deaf and identify as disabled and neurodivergent. And I'm excited to be a part of tonight's event and support it. So my role tonight is to kind of go over some housekeeping so we can all get the most out of tonight's experience. So we have provided ASL interpretation and closed captions that will be up on the screen for you. I want to remind you that the exit, if you need to exit the room for an otherwise, you can go right out this main doorway. The restrooms are located in the back, as well as a fully accessible restroom in the back left-hand corner of the room. We thank you for those that have already provided valuable feedback on the boards. At this time, if you have additional things that you'd like to write, there are baskets in the back, and we'll make sure that they get added. But to decrease people coming up in the middle, that way you can just put them in the back, and we'll make sure that they are added and captured. We have scribes that will be writing the spoken words on the boards up here during the event. When we do get the time where you can offer verbal comments, we have facilitators that are going to go over what that looks like. So we just ask that you raise your hand to indicate you'd like to speak, and we'll be moving around the room with microphones to get to you. And we ask that you join us, that this is just the first of many conversations in this project. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Holler, who's going to give the welcome remarks and talk a little bit more about the project, and then turn it over and welcome our facilitators for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Julia Haller. I have the privilege of serving as chair of the board of the College of Physicians of Philadelphia. And on behalf of our entire fellowship and the Board of Trustees, I want to welcome everyone to tonight's town hall to discuss the future of the Mütter Museum. We anticipate that this will be the first of several public meetings as part of the 2-year civic engagement process that we have launched. I want to particularly thank the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage for the wonderful grant that is funding this project. And finally, I'd like to thank the incredible staff here at the college who've done so much to make this evening possible. Thank you all. It has been an interesting last few months for the museum, with lots of different voices asking to be heard about the museum's future. We are so pleased that so many people have chosen to participate in this forum, and we are eager to hear your opinions and ideas about how we go forward. From the board's perspective, these meetings are part of how we address the extraordinarily difficult issues that confront not just the Mütter, but all museums that include human remains in their exhibitions. In the wake of the social reckoning of the last 3 years, especially, the standards for what constitutes the respectful display of human remains have evolved dramatically. Museums around the world, from the Wellcome Collection in London and the Smithsonian in Washington to the Penn Museum just up the street, all of these are facing difficult decisions about whether to display human remains at all, and if so, under what conditions. The Board of Trustees stands firmly in support of this work, which is only just beginning. The starting point is a comprehensive audit of the collection to better understand what we hold and how we acquired it. For context, we estimate that the human remains constitute approximately 6,500 items out of our entire collection of 35,000 items. We expect the audit to last several years. We recognize that some may disagree on issues, and I bet there's going to be a lot of disagreement in this room from many of you attending tonight. And that is a good thing. We're glad that everyone is here. We want to hear all these opinions, and it's okay to disagree with each other and with us, provided you can do so without being disagreeable. We all know that the Mütter is a treasure. And it's great that people feel so passionately about it. We feel passionately about it too. And more than anything, that's why we value your thinking as we work to make the museum experience better for everybody. So thanks again for participating in tonight's meeting. Thanks for your support going forward. And at this point, I want to introduce the two amazing women who are going to facilitate our discussion today, Kathy McLean and Monica Montgomery. Yay. Kathy McLean has worked in and with museums for more than 40 years, starting in kindergarten, I guess. And she has designed and developed a wide range of exhibitions in museums of history, art, and science, as well as interdisciplinary and children's museums. She also has extensive experience in working with institutions to shape their interpretive approach. Much of her work focuses on visitor voices through the facilitated conversations and workshops, and she has authored several books on these topics. And visitor voices, I think, really resounds with all of us today. Monica Montgomery is a museum consultant working at the intersections of social justice in museums and diversity, equity, and inclusion. She is steeped in community engagement and dynamic outreach and strategies for socially responsive museums, and believes that museums must be in service to society. She previously served as curator of social justice and programming for the Futures exhibit that celebrates the Smithsonian's 175th anniversary, and she has curated 40+ social justice, contemporary art, and public history exhibits, experiences, and festivals with renowned organizations like the Portland Art Museum, the Brooklyn Museum, the South African Embassy in Washington, D.C., Teachers College of Columbia University, and the High Line in New York City. We are so thrilled to have these world-class facilitators with us today to help engage everyone in this important conversation. So welcome, and thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Just as a first thing, as we get started, thank you for putting your comments up here. There's more time for you to put more comments up, but let's get them out of the way so we don't have this big kind of white wall facing you all. Maybe, and you're gonna do note-taking, right? So here are two, okay. We'll get these out here. Now, I have a few little notes. I just want to introduce myself real quickly. I've been working in museums for almost 50 years. You can kind of tell by my hair stands straight up because of it. In the US and internationally. My main practice has become getting museums to really listen to their communities and getting communities to really participate in their museums. And I think there's this kind of two-way street going on that we have to come to because museums can't make it without the input of their communities. And communities have wonderful treasures that they need to protect and grow. The Mütter is one of my favorite museums since the early 1970s when I started in the museum field. The Mütter was one of the museums that I saw that inspired me to actually get into the museum field and stay in the museum field. And we can talk forever about why and what's about the Mütter is so wonderful. But I just want everyone in this room to know this is a wonderful organization internationally. It's an honor to be here. It's a really exciting project. And I think this is an important model for museums, particularly across the United States right now. And as Dr. Haller mentioned, this is happening all over the place. People, all of us, we're really upset about how our society is taking shape. We're really concerned about the kind of changes that are happening all around us. And that's no different for museums. And there are all kinds of reasons that people stand up and say, stop. I mean, I got into the museum field because I worked at the Oakland Museum. I was hired at the Oakland Museum in 1974 after the people of Oakland protested and closed the museum down. I was hired with a group of other people to actually help the museum open up its ears and help community members figure out how they could participate. So I kind of got a jump start on this issue a long time ago. I think tonight, this is a listening project tonight. We've invited you here to really listen to you. That's why we put it up there. We want people to see this little sign. We are here to listen. We originally started, when we were organizing this to begin with, and I'm not a museum staff person. I'm one of the members of a group of people who are participating in this project. And well, we'll get to that in just a minute. And we are really here to listen. We had originally had a whole presentation for you, you know, that said, here's the Mutter, this is what maybe we're gonna do this, we might do this, these are our issues, blah, 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 how many people. And we decided that that was a little premature, and that what we really need to do is hear from you first, and then we will look at what you have to say, and we'll incorporate that into the planning for the next steps, for the project of thinking about the Mutter going forward. The first part we're going to deal with is concerns. Those seem to be the things that are coming to the surface right now, as in most museums around the country. And so you have put, some of you have put your concerns up here on the wall. Thank you very much. As people talk, we're also going to ask people to raise their hands. You'll have 2 minutes to say something. We have a timer, we have a guest, a timer who's going to keep time, so we're neutral about the timing. And then also, if something comes up in the meeting that really you feel moved to speak, you can go back and write it on a card back there, and they'll hand us the card, so we'll also read that card out. So you have 3 ways to enter your data and concerns and visions. Then we'll spend some time on the concerns, then we'll spend some time on the visions, and then we'll do a wrap. So I'm co-facilitating with Monica. Monica is going to tell you all about herself, which is very exciting, and get us going. Thank you.
Hello, test. Hello, how are you today? Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for coming. Can we thank each other for coming? Can you turn and talk to your neighbor and say, thank you for coming? Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. There's all kind of sports games going tonight. I know there's happy hours. You could be anywhere, but you're here with us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
That means a lot. And now it's not a room of strangers, it's a room of friends.
And thank you for coming.
Oh, of course. So I'm Monica O. Montgomery. It's a pleasure to be in community with you today. I am a professor. I teach museum studies in different graduate programs across the country. I'm a consultant aiming to enact museum remedy to ensure that museums are in right relationship with the communities they serve and with the people that feel that they're not being served, and ensuring that process is dynamic and aerobic and evolving. And I also am a social justice curator. I'm very passionate about a variety of social justice issues, and I've curated exhibits and events in service of that. But this is not about me, not about Kathy. This is about you, and hearing from you, and making sure that you feel this is a safe haven for self-expression and for communication. So in the spirit of that, myself and the other facilitators are really looking forward to hear from you. A few things to note. We want to make sure everyone gets heard. This is a full room. There's live stream folks. There's people that didn't even get in the door that are going to come next time. We invite you to keep coming back and to sign up. There are QR codes and other forms for registration for future convenings. I think the next one will be virtual. So we invite you to come and keep coming and keep being heard. For people that are feeling aggrieved, that's valid, that's fair. We ask that you have a respectful exchange in sharing your views. If we feel that you're doing something or saying something that is volatile, hostile, or outwardly violent, we're going to invite you into our respite room. You might need a breather or a break. I used to teach kindergarten. They frequently needed breaks. There's nothing wrong with that. We might need a nap or two as well. So the respite room is in this section. We have colleagues back there to aid you as you calm, as you breathe, as you seek respite. No one will be ejected for any reason, but please know if you are feeling extremely impassioned and you want to take yourself to the respite room, nothing wrong with that either. I might go myself. So yes, that is the room to my right. It might be to your left. Also, something else to note, this is a space for listening. So we're really actually not going to answer any questions tonight. We wouldn't even have the time or the space. The future convenings, the things that are crowdsourced, that are shared here, we will be answering in future convening. But right now, we're listening, we're documenting, and we're making sure that we're witnessing all that you're saying. Something else to say, just in terms of acknowledging, everyone has a view, an opinion, a perspective, and we're really excited to hear about those. And we understand that you've probably come tonight because you care about this institution and the stewardship of it. And that's very important, and we want you to keep operating in that energy of stewardship, in the energy of caring, and the deep concern and abiding love that you may have for this institution. So there really is no enemies of progress, but really we want to make sure everyone's heard so we can shape the future of the institution together. In addition to the deep listening, let's be respectful to one another's views. We're going to have a time limit of 2 minutes. So you'll have 2 minutes to express your thought. The timekeeper will have on the iPad as the time is rolling. If you're exceeding the 2 minutes, we'll ask you to make your remarks briefer so that everyone else can be heard. And again, my favorite word, remedy. This is a space for growing, for learning. Mistakes have been made. Mistakes may still be made. But if we can operate in that spirit of remedy, I think that this can come together, hopefully in the next 2 years and beyond. With that said, I'm going to pass it back to Kathy so we can get to hear from you about your concerns. Kathy.
Thanks, and I've got mine, Mike. And so we won't get too close because we'll get feedback. But here's our wonderful timekeeper, and he's holding up this screen so everybody can see. It's not arbitrary time. It's actually going to be when we hit the if you notice, and if one of you starts talking and you notice he hasn't hit the start button, tell him, okay? But we'll keep an eye on that. The other thing I just want to make sure, did everybody get this? It's a one-pager that just describes an overview of the general structure of thinking about the future planning for the Mütter. And you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of detail, and that's because a whole lot of detail hasn't been developed yet. That's why you're here, is to help us start to narrow down on that detail. Okay, who should we, let's start first with a few of you and your questions in the audience, and then we'll look to the boards and bring up some of the statements that are on the boards. Who'd like to go first? Yes. Sorry, we have mic runners, which means somebody will hold the microphone for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm here to talk about warning, context, and education. I think that there should be a warning before anyone goes into the museum, both from the responsibility of the museum and the responsibility of the visitors. I do not like the idea that while people are in the museum, they are laughing and making fun of things. I think it's a museum of respect, and we have to acknowledge that these people once left, and they are providing us with education. I am a tour guide here. I've been a tour guide for 6 years.
Wow.
And I view the museum as medical history and an opportunity for education. I think there are no other places where death can be discussed, forensic medicine, right. Phrenology, genocide, right. Birth defects. I mean, this provides an opportunity to discuss some very important things. And that's what I mean by education. And what I mean by context is I'm not very happy about the context that anything is presented in. I think it is rather unclear as to what we want them to think about as they are looking at the exhibits.
You mean in the current?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think I've made my points very clear.
Yes.
I will make two other statements. I will thank Dr. Haller for her wonderful note that she sent me. And the other thing, what was it? I have CRS, I can't remember. So what was the other thing I wanted to
If you remember, we will call on you again. We're trying to call on only people one time.
Oh, yes, I remember now. No wonder I forgot.
The fear of the microphone being taken away.
Spit equals death. I did not like it when it went up, and I still hate it. That awful chanting, I think it has nothing to do with medicine. I think I don't understand the point of the exhibit. We've had wonderful exhibit. That's not what I want.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let's give him a thanks. Okay, next person. Yes. 2 minutes, yes.
I need a microphone.
That they'll come. They're running here.
I've left too soon. It's okay. I'm sorry. Apologies, I'm getting over bronchitis. There actually did used to be a screen when you came in that warned people what they were going to see. That was removed by the administration, so that context did exist, but it's no longer here. I wanted to talk about people who have medical issues now who can come to the museum and feel seen. My friend, the incredible activist and artist and author Riva Lair, is a queer Jewish woman with spina bifida who has written and spoken at length about how the first time she came and saw someone who looked like her was at the Mütter Museum, and that she went her entire life never seeing anybody, not a family member, not someone she'd pass by on the street, who had the same kind of condition as her, and that it changed her life, and that it finally made her feel seen, and that the Mütter Museum is an anatomy and a medical history museum that lets people be seen and provides historical context, and human remains are the way that you can do that. Trying to retroactively apply standards from today to the past is incongruous. It's like asking somebody who built a house 400 years ago for their mortgage paperwork. Of course they don't have it. It didn't exist. If there are remains that people can claim and that they want back, of course they should have them. But we have remains here that are a heart, a piece of skin, an ear bone. I don't know how the museum expects to find provenance or repatriation information for that. If they can, that would be wonderful. But if they can't, why not let those remains teach people and let people feel seen? This is a public access museum. This is an anatomy and history medical museum. It's not the Penn Museum. It's not Pitt River. It's here to teach people about their bodies. And if you lose that, then people don't feel seen, and they don't have that information.
Thank you so much. And you know what? I put that on I also put that on the vision board as remembering, thinking about the future to let people be seen. That's an important idea.
Let's hear from another side of the room. I know there's all kinds of comments and thoughts. Anyone else? Yes. Can we have a mic runner come? Thank you.
I just wanted to back up the last respondent, as I have a autoimmune disease that freezes my spine slowly over the course of my life since the age of 12. I've had seen some plastic models of that while being, in doctor's offices over the years, but I never knew what was actually going to happen at the end of the day, years down the line. I was looking through the cases, and I saw my disease with the actual bones of somebody else who had their disease. Wow. And I was so amazed. I took a photo of it, I emailed it to my mother, I called my mother and told her, check your emails right now because that's what I have and that's what it looks like. And it was like I was being seen and I was being acknowledged because I was not, it wasn't a plastic representation of anything. This was an actual, showed me that I wasn't alone in having this problem that a very small percentage of people have. So it was very moving and meaningful to me. So I just back up that statement.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Let's get a mic runner over here. Yes, tell us.
Hey, sorry, I'm real tall. Hey, my name's Kim Kelly. I'm an author and journalist based in South Philly. So I was born with a rare congenital deformity called ectrodactyly, otherwise known as lobster claw syndrome. Pinch, pinch, pinch. And people like me have been a staple of the sideshow and of medical museums for centuries, but we're very rare outside that context. I mean, I'm 35 years old, and I've been to 20-some countries, every U.S. state, and I've only ever met 2 people like me. And the only other examples of people, even sort of like my condition, I've ever seen have been in jars. The Mütter Museum's exhibit on congenital deformities is the only place in the city of Philadelphia where I can see people like myself represented. So just think about that for a minute. I fully support the museum undergoing an ethical review, but I want to emphasize for folks here that for some of us, places like the Mütter and all of its complicated, sometimes macabre glory are the only place we can go to feel human. Places like this hold our histories. It reveals secrets about our medical conditions. It holds space for us to consider how our place in society has changed and how much more research and understanding is still needed. And it shows us that we're not alone, and we need that. For centuries, people like me have been seen as creatures of wonder or horror or curiosity, or just creatures. But I am not a monster. I'm not gross. I'm a human, and we deserve to be able to see ourselves reflected somewhere in this world, even if it's under glass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, in the back.
I'm a little surprised and disappointed that we're not going to be getting any actual information. So I have some questions. I'm just going to put these out there and won't expect anything back. Can the administration reconcile that they decided to remove all images of human remains from your online outlets prior to soliciting feedback? How are we expected to believe that you want audience feedback or visitor feedback or participant feedback, member feedback, when those kinds of actions predate the implementation of this project? Okay, next question. Can you explain the rationale behind the removal of images of human remains from the website, including those of donors? Like clear, open, explicit consent donors. Are we to think that there's something about seeing the human body in that context that is inherently shameful? Memento Mütter was an accessible educational resource used by teachers, doctors, patients, and researchers worldwide. Can you explain the rationale behind its removal? Is that a resource that's lost forever, or is that something that's reclaimable?
And which is that? Could you just repeat
the Memento Mütter was...
Okay, Memento Mütter removal,
yeah.
You got it. Okay, good.
That doesn't seem to have been addressed at all during this conflict, and I just was hoping to get some more information about it. Yeah, overall, I just have to say that having grown up in a family with a mom that was so compromised physically in ways that weren't always visible, to come to a place like this and get that validation and see people when they come in, and yes, there has been giggling that I have witnessed in all of my time here. More often than not, it's very uncomfortable giggling. Giggling is an expression of excess energy, and when people don't know how to handle what they're looking at, which I can't blame them for at all, that's sometimes a way to sort of downplay it or displace that energy. So I think we might be better served with, again, the additional context that can be provided very easily with some simple additions and maybe some rearranging. I have no issue with any kind of actual ethical review as long as everything is above board and transparent.
Great.
Which we haven't seen yet.
Okay. That's really helpful, and I wrote some of your issues down there for the future as well.
Wonderful.
But I'd love for you, before you leave, make sure that the person captured the
Is that 2
accurately your, yep.
Okay, perfect.
We
Thank
have
you.
a comment here. Can we get a mic runner?
Hi, my name is Rachel Lance, and I'm not only also a disabled person, I'm one of the few living donors to the Mütter Museum. In November 2022, I had a major operation to remove a uterine fibroid. Now, as an overachiever, I decided to grow one that was quite exceptional in size, and so thankfully, the Mütter offered it a home. My disability has nothing to do with my fibroid, but like all of the other people who have spoken thus far, my first trip to the Mütter resulted in tears of joy and catharsis for me after the visit, because for the first time, I saw bodies like mine, I saw actual samples of people being represented, and furthermore, I saw attention and sensitivity being paid to the way that those samples were discussed in a format that provided medical information that was accessible by the public. When you limit that information to only physicians, then only physicians can understand their bodies.
That's an issue, good.
So after that, and after seeing the sensitivity with which this museum has always treated its remains, especially in the context of changing social demands, I reached out to them after my diagnosis and offered my own tumor. They thankfully acknowledged it and agreed with enthusiasm. They let me name it Helga the Destroyer, because I find that the best way to get through illness is a sense of humor. And they played along with that, along with me, creating plans for the future for me to be able to be a participant and a voice in the display of my own body part. I'm now here because since about November 2022, there has been an obvious shift. And me and my friend, who donated her birth heart following a transplant, have been largely unable to get any feedback or response from new museum personnel about what's been happening with our own pieces of our own bodies. So I appreciate that the Mütter is talking about ethics of review, is talking about the ethics of consent and use of historical samples. But here you have at least two people who have given wholeheartedly our enthusiastic consent for our disabled bodies to be seen and learned from, and we cannot get answers to our emails. I've been emailing Dr. Haller since June without reply. So please tell me, where else can disabled people like me go and provide permission to others to ask questions in an environment where they feel comfortable, where I have given permission to be looked at and to be examined and provide information back, as opposed to the alternative for most disabled people, which is for it to have been done to us unwillingly without our consent on the street. The Mütter provides that safe place for us to provide that consent back to the viewer. And without it, then we don't have the ability to have that. We end up having to give the proverbial spoons from our limited energetic resources day to day, whenever demanded from us by those around us.
Thank you. Yes. A mic is coming to you. I see your hand next. Oh, you're hugging your girlfriend, sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Hi. I work in museums, and a lot of my work has been around the return of objects and ancestors and human remains. And I am really grateful for the people who've spoken so far. And your story is so moving, and it's wonderful that you have been able to have some kind of self-determination in what you did with your body. But I can't help think that there are thousands of other people who exist in this collection who had no say in coming into the collection, and that sometimes we have to stop what we're doing and assess it and look backwards so that we can move forwards. I don't think that anyone wants the donations that have come in consensually to be hidden away forever. I want that because I also care deeply about, access to medical information and in an understandable way. But you can't do that while also still causing harm and violence and perpetuating a history of violence and harm from both medicine and museums. Yeah.
Thank you. Monica, here's somebody here. Okay.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight. It's really nice to see a couple of familiar faces in here. So I am a former staffer of this museum. I was here for well over half a decade, and I'm really grateful to hear so many different takes about this museum, about what it means, and how it delves into really deep, difficult, contentious questions. There has never been a time since this place was founded that the Mütter Museum and its collections have not been contentious. They're human remains. Of course they will be. And looking at the scope of how ethical acquisition, or not ethical acquisition, which is also unfortunately a historical reality for a lot of these collections, Looking at all of this in a giant, bigger picture with 2023 eyes, I know for myself, for a number of other guides and docents who have also worked here through the years, there has always been a concerted effort to keep the human story to the specimens inside this museum. What we also have the opportunity to do here in such a unique and powerful, world-changing, beautiful way is to discuss the impact of colonization, to discuss unethical trade and sale of human body parts through time and how that gets colored in through the sphere of things like racism and poverty. We get to discuss lack of access to medical care, all of these deep, scary topics. It's not just the specimens remains, it's not just the residents, as some of us do call the people that are here. We have this beautiful opportunity to make world change, for people to come in here who are future practitioners, museum studies majors, educators, doctors, nurses. The Mütter Museum, the College of Physicians, and all the work that it does, and even though I haven't really been a fan, and some of you are aware, I've been very vocal about that over the last few months, the impact that this place has is unparalleled to actually make meaningful change. We also have the ability to create more signage, do more educating, not less. For all of these people who, we are doing a review of with the collections, we really should also be including blatant signage, more educational docent presence in the museum to make sure it is contextualized correctly, which has been a staff ask here for almost 10 years, in case no one knew that.
Wow.
And signage that gets directly to the heart of what is repatriation, what is the process of how that looks, help people understand, not just each other, but what this place actually means in every context. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There's a hand here. Let's have a mic runner, and then I see your hand will come to you next, okay?
Hello. Hello, everyone. Among other things, I am a therapist, and I would like to speak on the subject of discomfort, because I have been hearing threads of that through everyone here, and it's really important to address that death is not a comfortable topic, especially in a culture that avoids looking at it, that hides it away. We have a museum here that allows people to come and sit in their discomfort and have emotional responses to that discomfort and then learn through it and process that discomfort. That is extremely rare. My concern I would like to address is that I do recall in one of the earlier interviews with Kate Quinn, she referred to a TripAdvisor 4.5 rating of the Mütter Museum and cited that a few people were uncomfortable with the subject matter of the museum, and that was one of the reasons for removing some of the, or all of the videos and some of the exhibits. I am concerned that if we are going to have someone who can ethically and respectfully address our living donors, the concerns of repatriation, the concerns of the people that have worked there 5, 10, 20 years and know the Mütter, know what we need, know everything that we have that isn't even shown. We need someone who is comfortable with discomfort. And I personally do not believe that the current establishment, or at least the hired current establishment, is going to be able to do that properly. I see my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a hand here. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to hit as many things as possible. All right, first things first. Yeah, we are definitely framing this in a very Western, white, Christian lens, and that is wrong, frankly.
It's a good issue.
At the end of the day, I am a mixed race, indigenous trans man who is intersex. To back up what you said, I tried to donate my almosterus and my shitty cervix. I had a cervical endometriosis, and it disabled me for most of my life. When I was ready to donate, it was right around the museum's administration change, and I got ghosted. I wanted my shit to be here. And frankly, I find it a little offensive that people say, oh, well, there's indigenous people on display. No, there wasn't, but there could have been. and it could have been mine. And this was a place that I am deeply passionate about. I love this place. I've been coming here since I was a child. And to see people who don't really understand what it is and make fallacious arguments comparing it to an anthropological or art museum is insane. This is a medical museum, not a place to measure your skull and see if you have the brow ridge of the Chad circumference. This is insane. This needs to get stopped.
Okay.
I don't know what the aim is here, but frankly, I find it disturbing that the Pew Research grant, their deadline wasn't long after you guys took down everything. So it seems like a cash grab for, frankly, projects that needed the funding way more than you guys did. And also, I'm red-green deficient. This was cruel with the frickin' notes. I can't tell the difference. So if you actually care, actually care. But this is all lip service.
Thank you.
There's a hand back here. We see your hand. Here's a mic runner.
Hi. I'm so happy that this event is happening. And I want to channel a little bit of Gretchen Warden's voice. I had the pleasure of working here as a dissertation researcher from '96 to 2002. And she used to always say she cared less about why people came into the building because she knew they would learn something as they went through it. And one of the things that I did was a reception study with visitors to the museum, interviewing them before they came and after they left. And the data, the qualitative data supported that message. But I also heard from fellows, which is interesting because I'm a fellow now and I've wanted to be one since 1996, telling me they didn't like the pink-haired punk kids that were coming through the museum. And so I'm really intrigued and excited by the language that's being used, because the control of language, the control of knowledge is so dangerous. And just to expand on this idea that this is a place where we could learn, I'm really intrigued by all of the other things we can learn here. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Other thoughts, other voices? Yes.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Sharona Pearl. I've had the enormous privilege of teaching university classes in partnership with the Mütter and through the guidance of the wonderful staff here. And as a trained historian of science, I just want to say that I don't think that we can institute world change without looking incredibly thoughtfully at the ethics of the past. I don't think that we here, I agree, we're having a really white lens here, have any kind of access, and I'm quoting a friend of mine, to the dead and assume that we know what to do with them from our cultural perspective. I come from a culture where dead bodies were violated and burned en masse, and I would hate to reproduce that here when we have the ability and the control to actually do something about that. I'm really grateful to everybody here who shared their perspectives, and I absolutely agree that this is an important space, and it is important to have people have agency in how their bodies are viewed and displayed, and I think that we owe that to the past as well.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, are there any museum people out here that are from a different museum and might have a different perspective?
Let's have a mic runner come to
Yes.
Aviva.
Thank you. And could you tell us who that is so that we can just...
F. Michelangelo, who's the head archivist at the Jefferson.
Okay.
He is actually the steward of Dr. Mutter's documents.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And he could not be here tonight because of a health emergency. So I'm just going to read his statement. I want to commend the Mütter leadership for offering the community and friends of the Mütter a chance to speak their minds, albeit on a highly controlled and limiting platform. I want to speak to the idea of museum professionalism. I've been an archivist and curator in various Philadelphia historic medical collections since 1989. Over the decades, I have known and collaborated with many Mütter staff members. Of course, the personnel has changed over the last 35 years. Likewise, the ethics of museum collecting, display, and description have undergone changes, and all for the better. Mütter staff have been of the highest ethical tradition. we in the community look to their professional lead in examining and redefining the difficult balance of respect and education when using human-based artifacts. Well, the opposite is now the case. The version of the Mutter is a symbol of wrong-headedness. The staff's mass resignation is not a sign of disagreeing with museum ethics, which they have practiced long before current leadership arrived. It is a protest against the heavy-handed leadership in which this leadership alone, they are sole experts. This disregard for the expertise exercised in past videos and exhibitions speaks only to the ego and power at the top. That self-serving, domineering model must be removed so the Mutter can honestly reimagine itself with what constitutes fully participating, not just limited to 2 minutes and people who don't want to hear it.
Thank you, thank you. I want to highlight, I see your hand. 1 second. I want to highlight a resource because I realize not everyone is inclined to speak publicly in a room full of strangers. So there is an email that if you want to share more or share some of the things you shared tonight again, you can send to inquiries@collegeofphysicians.org. We'll have someone write that on a board, so if you need to, you can read it. You can write it from what is written there, because spelling, I know I struggle with spelling. Inquiries@collegeofphysicians.org. That email account is being checked and will be responded to. Yes, we see your hand. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi there. With the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there's a probability that there will be more fetuses that are born with abnormalities that are fatal in red states that restrict abortions. Thanks to reproductive rights, those numbers are seen more in countries with abortion restrictions and lack of medical care, like third world countries. If we remove the abnormal specimens, then we erase the fact that pregnancy doesn't always guarantee a healthy baby and a safe birth. There are specimens of assigned female at birth people that have abnormal pelvis specimens that would not, basically, they would not be able to have children without extreme medical intervention. While having these specimens on display, to me, shows that cis, heterosexual, conservative Christian male politicians, they think that pregnancy is an easy ride. It isn't. It is deadly for both the pregnant person and the fetus. Most of the time, we see the examples of these abnormalities in farm animals on the internet, but it is rarely talked about with human as the example. I appreciate that they're on the display. It makes people rethink about reproduction and the anatomy of their body and whether or not it is worth bringing a baby into the world if they have a condition. I am also glad the display shows that humans are not free from the conditions that animals are often seen, and that we are animals and we are not some other deity that apparently God make us.
Right.
We are animals. We are mammals.
Yeah. Okay, one more and then? Okay, hold that.
I see a gentleman here who hasn't spoken. Can we hear from him first and then go to repeat the repeat comment that you had? Sorry, another comment from the person.
Well, I am a physician and a member of the college. And I am definitely in favor of keeping the exhibits as they are. And that is because the days when medicine was secret, when lay people were not supposed to understand disease, those days are gone, and they should be gone. And so the public, as well as physicians like myself, have the right to see these diseases and to understand these diseases better. And I am absolutely against changing the Mutter from what it is, an institution that has no parallel in the medical world and should be maintained as it is.
We see your hand here.
If we have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for hearing from me a second time. I earlier provided my personal experience, so I also wanted to weigh in and provide my professional angle, which is a slightly different perspective. I'm a PhD biomedical engineer who specializes in the biomechanics of injury and trauma, and as such, I work as a research professor at Duke University Hospital, where I conduct human subject research, including the collection of human tissue samples. So as part of that job, obviously, I've gone through huge amounts of intensive ethics training, and also as a patient there, I feel like it's important to let people know the context of the medical field right now. So anytime a patient goes in for a medical procedure, they sign a surgical waiver. And almost every hospital or medical facility includes in that waiver a blanket permission for the physicians to do whatever they want with the tissue afterwards. So for example, after the removal of my fibroid, I was very lucky to have pull from the Mütter because the contract I had to sign in order to get the surgery in the first place allowed the hospital to do whatever they pleased with my body parts. I had to fight the same fight to get my friend's heart. The pathologist actually wanted to keep it for his private collection. So there's been a lot of conversation today about the changing medical ethics of tissue donation, and so I just wanted to provide that information in that context to say that if we leave everything exclusively to the physicians, really nothing has changed since the days of Henrietta Lacks.
We're going to take one more comment on concerns and then transition into visions. Yes, ma'am in the black.
So I just wanted to say I have a little different relationship with the Mütter. I was introduced to this museum as a University of the Arts student. I was brought here to have us look at the unusual and embrace it, to not shy away from humanity. I've also worked in nonprofits that have had issues with communication and reflecting its needs of its audiences. And my question tonight is, as you hear all these voices and how much there is love for this organization and wanting to be responsible in the same breath, once trust is gone, can it be replaced? Can it be repaired?
That's a big issue.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do one last concern question. And since we're almost at time, but there's so much to still be said, we're going to extend the dialogue. You're welcome to stay with us till 7 o'clock because we do feel that there is a lot more to say. We did advertise this goes till 6:30, but if you can, we invite you to stay till 7, and that's when we'll have our hard stop. Let's have a mic runner come to this person here.
Thank you. I'm trained as a museum curator, and I'm also a museum consultant. And one of the things I've done is to work with organizations that are in conflict. And it's very apparent that this board has a conflict which it needs to address. I don't see, frankly, how this organization can go forward and do this community work when it has so many problems at home. So the board, the leadership, and the staff is where the healing needs to begin first. And I think only then can you successfully carry forward a community conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
The last guy, or no?
Kathy?
Okay, so we're going to shift right now. We've said we have more time, which is great, and we're going to shift to visions for the future. We're also, I went and read the concerns board, and let me guarantee you that every one of those concerns is going to be listed. The museum has plans to actually put everything online, so you'll be able to see your concern reflected. It's not going to be filed away in some weird little cubbyhole somewhere. So these are really valuable tools for us moving forward.
Kathy, I think it might be helpful just to speak out some of what is written here.
There are, yes, a few. I think a lot of these things have been it's all kind of all over the map. There's even somebody here saying that their big concern is that the library is not given enough attention. Okay, but I think that there are a lot of concerns here that I think when the museum has more meetings and you can really get down to having discussion, back and forth conversation, we'll find out that we'll get the real take on what's going on here, and I think some people will be relieved to find out that some of these things aren't happening. But that's going to be your participation only in order to figure that out. Right now, I think it would be good. Some people did take their time and energy to write visions down, and I think it's really important to at least hear about the visions as well, because they, and I actually, on some of the things, and we also took down issues, we have an issues list, and then I also put some of the bigger concerns that I thought could actually be reinterpreted as visions for the future to remember as you start planning over in this visions section as well. So can we shift for a minute and let's hear what's your hope and dream for the Mutter going forward?
I'm sorry, I have to say something. We were told that all online resources that were deemed appropriate were returned as of Labor Day. But to this day, the video celebrating Carol Orzel's life remains taken.
Issue. Okay. Okay, we got it. Okay, thank you. And that's going to go up on this, and we're going to deal with it. Promise. Somebody had a hand up. Yes, you. Yeah, microphone.
Hi, my name is Katie. I want to thank everybody who's made comments so far. Thank you especially to everyone who shared their very personal stories. I think it's a shame that it's gotten to a point where people have had to come into a room of strangers and share their medical history in order to feel heard. So I hope going forward, leadership at the museum will ask themselves questions such as, are they here to serve themselves or to serve their community? Yep. I understand people on the board have probably worked very hard to get there. I understand there's a large educational background to the leadership. However, does that mean that you're here for yourselves and what you think we should know? Or are you here to actually tell us what we want to learn?
That's actually a good point. What we want to learn. Okay, great. Okay, visions. Now come on, you guys. I know you have visions, dreams of what's possible. Yes?
I'm a technologist, and I believe in progress and moving forward. In this case, though, my vision for moving forward is to go back to the past.
Okay, that's a
we
really
need to return to what it was originally and not really be so politically correct and concerned with the provenance of a particular specimen because we didn't get the permission. I mean, going ad absurdum, that goes in the direction of getting the permission of the dinosaurs we display at the Museum of Natural History. So let's get rid of them. We need to keep things as it was.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good going. Did we capture it right? Go back to the past, not be so politically correct. So actually, the future, your future vision is to go back to the past. So it's a loop. Okay. Good. Who else? Yes.
So there's been a lot of talk about what a treasure this museum is. Clearly, most of the people in this room adore this museum and like it the way it is. However, there is an opportunity here to for this institution to become, to initiate a conversation about the whole ethics of the display of human body parts and human remains, and to be a world leader in determining what is the correct way forward. And that should be happening long before anybody steps in and says, oh, let's get rid of this, let's shut down this website, let's take this off display. I mean, you're putting the cart before the horse here. I really believe that's where you should be directing your vision for the future, is to become a world leader in the discussion of how to deal with these things appropriately. And don't just go in there like a bull in a china shop and start shutting everything down and hiding everything.
Thank you. There are some hands over here. Can we have a mic runner to come and hear the visions? Would you like to go first? Okay.
Yes. As far as visions go, I don't think I could agree with that anymore, Sarah. Thank you for saying that. That's important. As far as things I would really like to see presented here, I mean, I still work in the museum industry here in Philadelphia. I actually do interpretation, outreach, and education at another facility now. One thing I would really like to see us do with the Mütter Museum is to memorialize the people that are here more fully than just a single plaque that we display on social media. These are people. They are not just specimens. One way that we could do that is to create an annual tradition of a completely not-for-profit, do not exchange money of any variety memorial service for the people that are here, whom anyone who wants to come can come to pay their respects, to keep the humanity for them.
That's an interesting idea.
Another thing that I would personally really like to see, and it's been an ask at least 4 times tonight, having listened to everyone, this museum needs increased and understandable signage. Things that are explaining, what am I seeing? What is the category of what I am seeing? Where can I find more information about this? Is there a research program for this particular condition somewhere in the greater Philadelphia area so that people can not only see themselves, but they have access to modern medical care? Additionally to that, I would love to see signage and community-led discussions regarding the state of medicine as it is right now. Downstairs in the lobby, it has existed for a few years, is the black bag display, if any of you have seen that, which talks about the experience of particularly Black physicians, Black nurses, and patients. We could be having and facilitating more community open discussions for community groups that need to be heard. This is an excellent place to do that, and it's also a great place to begin the conversation about how ethics in medicine have changed over time, where they have fallen short, and where they continue to fall short today. This place can be an advocate for change in every way, in a human way.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we go next to Aviva?
Let's get some other hands that have not had a chance. Okay. Oh, you've already picked some. Oh, sorry.
I think that a really easy vision would be the renovations and staff positions that were fundraised for. There was a lot of fanfare about the millions of dollars that were fundraised for a second floor of display, for more staff positions, that the leadership said that they are reimagining for the new buildings that they bought to be used as event space.
Okay.
So that seems like a pretty clear vision.
Okay, and it's a big issue. But wait, just a minute. There were some hands back here of people who hadn't spoken yet. Okay, yes.
Hi, how's it going? I just want to echo my fellow museum professional over here about repatriation. As someone who has a background in science museums and has worked with human remains, the change in how we handle and repatriate them has been evident in the field, especially in the last few years. Yeah. I think an appropriate vision for the future would be to have a collection that you're confident wasn't grave robbed. It's great that some exhibits have been updated to humanize collections, and yes, if you're gonna have them on display, have more signage, but it doesn't change the fact that they shouldn't have been here in the first place. I don't see how you can decry colonial practices when you're still benefiting from them.
Thank you. There was someone else over here. Yes.
Okay.
You had your hand up.
Wow, this is a complicated conversation. And observing this conversation, I'm really mindful of the emotions in the room. And as someone who is a museum professional, I'm also thinking about, in terms of vision for the future, what is a museum's role in society, and why do museums exist?
That's a good issue.
And museums are not hermetically sealed, like super glued in institutions where everything remains the same. And I can really empathize with a lot of the feelings in the room, having participated in some pretty significant change making in my own institution, and understanding that when you make change, and someone over here said meaningful change, that change is really difficult, especially when you're deeply attached to the stories that are being told. And I guess in terms of vision for the future, what I would ask is the people in this room, the people who are not in this room, the people who are online, like, think really deeply, not just about themselves and their own stories, not just their own subject position, but how can the Mütter grow and adapt in ways that are both meeting the ethical best practices of the field. So you all might know, like, American Museum of Natural History just agreed to remove all of the human remains from its building. Although it's committed to using those remains and studying those remains in many different ways. And also, so many of the complicated questions that have been raised here, those are really important questions. And if we can maybe continue this conversation in a way where we're teasing out how the Mütter can be a center for considering those questions rather than necessarily a place of contestation over the past and keeping it as it is versus the future and allowing it to become a place that I think we all would like it to be.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. We have some people that have been patiently waiting. Let's have a mic runner.
I'm so sorry. I just need to directly rebut something you said about the Museum of Natural History in New York. My literal ancestors are on display next to rocks and animals. So I don't think that's a great comparison, because again, this is a medical museum, not a phrenology museum, not anthropology. It's not an art museum. Medical museum. And also that was very patronizing and condescending. This is not about our personal fifis or, as someone said, our emotional support corpses. You can do better than that. You know better than that. Come on now.
But can you actually turn that into how might that change?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But I definitely need more than a minute and 16 seconds.
Well, you'll have the chance to do that at the next meeting where you could talk for a long time.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
You won't like it.
That's fine, but we want to get it down.
Yeah. Here's visions for the future. My partner has fibromyalgia. When she came here for the first time, it was almost impossible for her to navigate, expand, give these beautiful exhibits room to breathe. Everything is cramped on top of each other. You have baby skulls on the floor.
Okay. So that's a big issue about current display is...
But it's a vision for the future. Get the child off the floor. Respect the child.
So get the child off the floor is actually a great metaphor for what you're talking about.
Literally. Mary Ashbury's child deserves respect. We have people. We need to represent them. We need to show not, okay, this is this person, or the numerous exhibits that have no context whatsoever.
Okay.
But make the place disabled-friendly, accessibility-friendly. Carol Orzel would never be able to walk up, down the stairs, these cramped little hallways. You have exhibits on the floor. You have people scrunching down to try to see everything. You have the money. You donated, people raised the money. You've got grants. Do the thing. Don't focus on the event space where you can make a couple $1,000s off of someone's wedding.
Great.
Make sure you're respecting the people that are actually here as residents of the museum.
Okay, I think that's a really beautiful statement.
There's another comment. The person next.
Can I just get a time check here? Where are we on time? 6:37. So we have 13 minutes left. So yes, go.
Hi there. I know that people have been talking about their medical history. I'm on the autism spectrum with borderline personality disorder, ADHD, and bipolar disorder. And one thing I've noticed is that there are organizations that host meetups for people who have like conditions. And there are also, like you might have, this is an old one, the Autism Project of Owings, Maryland, where they have groups of people that come together and they kind of learn and they work together and they become like friends and family, basically. Why don't we have meetups where this is a medical museum, we could learn to maybe meet together and learn about our conditions or work together and be better, and just, because we're here. We're mental illnesses, neurodiversity, that's medical. Why don't we try to have these meetups? And then when there's conditions that are rare, I mean, there's conventions for people who have little people conditions. There's also where they might have the skeletons that turn into, the muscles that become calcified. Let's have those. Let's have meetings like that. Let's make a community here.
That's a great idea. Okay, we have the woman with the red shirt on, red and black, back of the room. Sorry for the color, calling out the color. It's the only way I could identify her.
Hi, I just wanted to start with a quick sort of grounding statement, which is that anthropological collections and anatomical and pathological collections all come from the types of people who have always been marginalized and exploited in whatever culture they were in. I do not see a meaningful distinction between trying to tease out the discipline that we use to describe the collection. I also wanted to pick up on a few comments made by the gentleman over there and I think one other person, that I think there's a real opportunity here to not only lead a conversation about these types of collections, but also to do really interesting and innovative historical work. People have been talking about a lack of provenance. There is provenance for these types of collections. It's just not all in one archive. And I think creative and there's been so much creativity in reparative genealogy, in the ways in which historians are using archival sources, that I really think this provenance issue is one that we could tackle and provide really a path forward for these types of conversations.
Great, thank you very much. Here's a guy here in a yellow shirt, orange, blue, green.
Hi, I have a vision of an exhibition process that I've seen used in the museum field before, and Kathy, I think you've been a part of this. At the Oakland Museum, there's an exhibition on the history of California, and it was created with the stories of contemporary Californians. Contemporary Californians would offer their objects as the means to tell their own histories, and those objects were on display with their stories being told next to them. And I can imagine a situation in which contemporary people with medical conditions could be asked to or could volunteer to tell their own stories of their medical conditions, and perhaps there are objects associated with them or not, but there could be a way to tell the stories of people who deserve to have their particular conditions present and who deserve to have them acknowledged and appreciated. Tell their own stories rather than have have the curators and the leaders of this institution facilitate the process of that storytelling and presentation. Hopefully that made sense.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Great idea.
I see another hand, the person wearing black.
And then she's a...
Well, there are many people wearing black.
Me again, sorry. I could have said this earlier, but it's shockingly easy to have a brain fart when there's a microphone in front of your face.
Of course.
I just wanted to expand on visions I would have for the staff going forward, hopefully, and for the leadership.
Great.
It's unfortunate hearing several comments here today about just the ways that certain visitors to the museum are seen. I don't mean any disrespect for your tour guide work, but to tone police people who might be laughing because they're just surprised or uncomfortable is an unfortunate attitude to have towards visitors of the museum. To have people commenting on the appearance of people visiting the museum, I just would wish that going forward there would be more acceptance from the higher ups. You know, like, I don't have the professional credentials to tell anybody how to set up a museum. I'm a professional tattooer. I don't I don't know the world of higher education or anything like that, but I'm somebody who's curious and interested in these things. And it would be a shame to see things that we can't access or see anywhere else be taken away from us just because we're seen as less than worthy of access to these specimens, these collections, and this education. And so I hope that that's something.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We have a person here who hasn't spoken yet.
Sure. I'm not actually sure where the line between the Mütter Museum and the College of Physicians exists, so pardon me if I'm blurring it here. But I also work in cultural institutions, and sometimes I think a first step matters, a tactic that you can achieve matters, and also what the space and how we use it signals something about what we mean to be doing with our work. So I can't help but sit in this space and say that my vision would include taking a look at this, what is a beautiful room, but that celebrates accomplishments in the progress of medicine that do not include probably 75% of this room. We are just not represented on these walls. And as an interesting place to start, I'm not saying you have to take down things, but like, what if we throw up a portrait of Henrietta Lacks on the wall? Yeah. What if we start signaling, right, that there are other ways that contributions have been made and that we're going to be interested in those people and those stories? And that is easier to do on a wall like this in a painting while we work on some of the big ethical questions. So that's just like a very specific little tactic. I'd love to see different people on these walls the next time I come.
We see two more hands. Let's have a mic runner come to this person here with the braids, and then afterwards to you, sir.
We're gonna,
and then we're getting ready to transition to our next final section.
Is this thing on? Oh, sorry. I wanted to just sort of echo what I've heard from some of the folks here, and especially with the person in the plaid was saying about how it would be really lovely to incorporate some of these more modern voices of disabled people who are dealing with some of these conditions, because when it comes to institutions like this, I've been to medical institutions, pathology museums, et cetera, in a bunch of different countries. And there is sort of this impulse, I think, to historicize the folks in the collection, to say, oh, this is something, oh, there's corsets here, oh, there's, this all happened way in the past, everything's dusty. But we're still here. There are lots of disabled folks who see ourselves in those jars and in those, in those collections, but maybe people don't know that we still exist, or that these conditions are still out here, or that we can make it, that we survived. I mean, like, not to be funny, but I'm literally a professional writer, and I have 8 fingers. Like, it can be done. So, literally, I have a book out, you can Google me. But all that being said, I would love a little bit more acknowledgement that we're still here, and a lot of us do make it. We don't all end up in jars.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. We don't all end up in jars.
I think I was misinterpreted entirely. I like laughter, and I understand that in the process of trying to understand, there may be nervous laughter, and that's perfectly fine. But I've also seen exhibits disrespected. Do you understand disrespect? People laughing and saying, is that real and all this. And I think that could be alleviated with context. And I think I'm very lucky to be on this side of the room because I think they've expressed it very eloquently.
And you have it up here on the board, context. That's a big one that's going to get recorded as well. Need to provide context.
Thank you for the clarity. Any other thoughts? This is the moment, but not the only moment, but this is a moment. Any other thoughts? I see your hand from anyone who has not spoken.
Blue hat.
You have spoken. Anyone who has not spoken?
Oh, he has spoken.
Okay, we're going to go here and then to you.
As far as laughing goes, you're always going to get a few idiots, and I think that we need to aspire to intelligence and scholarship as opposed to pandering to the lowest common denominator. We need to reach for higher levels of scholarship, really. And you're going to get, I mean, people laugh at the Holocaust, you know, so we stop teaching it? You know, come on.
Thank you. Over here, a mic runner.
It's true.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to reply because Kim Kelly, I wrote down your name because I'm going to buy your book, and the gentleman in the plaid. That's exactly what was happening, exactly what you guys said. And I agree completely with everything you said, this idea of having these displays with human context, just like Carol Orzel's. That's what inspired me to donate my own tissue. And it was what was going on here. So as of August 2022, when I was organizing my own donation and I was organizing the heart donation on behalf of my friend because she was gravely ill, we had pull from the museum, we had support, we had people asking us our stories, asking us our perspectives. Two names in particular were Anna Doty and Lowell Flanders, who were just beautiful humans the whole time. And then all of a sudden, when I go to follow up in it, in November 2022, it was all of a sudden I couldn't get answers anymore after that. So I flew here to ask what's happening with my body part because I can't get anyone to tell me. So we did have that. We had exactly what you suggested. It was gorgeous. I support it wholeheartedly. I want to know, even though questions aren't being answered, why did that change?
That's up there. Why did that change? There's one gentleman here. Should we? Okay, yes.
This will be.
I'm just going to hold it. I'll hold it for you.
I guess what I find offensive is that we're speaking to a couple of people who aren't part of the institution. The board is not here. We don't know what the board is doing. These people have poured their hearts out and explained to the board why it shouldn't change. I don't understand why the board doesn't make a public appearance, come to these meetings, and try to justify to us why they changed that museum. If you didn't like the museum, you shouldn't have been on that board. This is a board with a history. All right, is there going to be a time when you will go public and let us answer questions? I mean, the changes are made. Why would you come to this museum and make changes when it's got a history and a meaning? I mean, it seems to me that it was a very arrogant attempt by some outside group, intellectuals, to tell us what's right and wrong with a museum and a cherished institution. And it just seems so wrong to not have done it earlier. It's only because of the response that we even get this chance.
Thank you for saying that into the microphone in this room, because we are going to, you know, we've been waiting, the museum has been waiting to find out if they had the funding to actually put this conversation process in place. Not very many people, you look at me like that, but I have been in a lot of museums where they refused to do this conversation process ever. So the first step was you've all said some very amazing things here. The
museum changed first, and only in response to this kind of...
Actually, that's your perception, but that is not totally accurate. So what I want you to do is to commit to the next conversation. What is not good is to come and just say a bunch of stuff and leave and then just keep saying it. The next sets of conversation are going to be conversations and dialogues where you can have a back and forth, where you can get your questions answered with the board and the staff and each other, okay? Because this is an authentic process that this museum has put in place. The PCAH, which is an incredible funder and so hard to get money from, they are very rigorous about making sure that if things are promised to get a grant, that actually happens. And I don't participate in any project personally and professionally unless I'm pretty sure that it is going to happen the way it is proposed. And so I can tell you, I'm standing on my personal professional feet right now and saying that there is more conversation to come and that you need to be part of it. And that the time for the angst is over. Now let's work together to kind of figure out where the place goes from here. And any of you who kind of smirk or laugh, don't believe in the democratic system, we are going to get together and talk and make things happen in a way that you will be happy I'm saying this, you know, you can, and I will put my email online and you can contact me if you think it's gone wrong. But this is the first step in a very big process. And these people are really trying to hear this. And I have to say, this is not very many museums do this. So you can get all bent out of shape about, you know, this is too constrained and whatever, but this is important. Your comments are really important. And there are going to be next steps. I better stop. Thank you. We have, we have a few minutes left.
Thank you, Kathy.
Monica's going to wrap us up.
Your passion. One thing that I love to do at town halls is not just to have the conversation be a monologue, but a dialogue. I know there's a lot left unsaid. I saw hands that we didn't get to, and we don't want you to leave with the energy of feeling restrained or constricted or censored. So I'm inviting you in these last 10 minutes to talk to one another. Group up as you are able, as you are comfortable. Dialogue with those in your area. How are you feeling about your concerns being heard? What do you envision for the future of museums and the future of this museum? And continue to write your thoughts out as we gather and get towards the end of this. We invite you to continue dialoguing with one another and to come dialogue with us. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. This is exactly what we had hoped would happen, and we want to thank everybody so much for being here. Incredible feelings, great ideas, great brainstorming. I've taken about 25 pages of notes, and I just want to thank all of you for being here. And I hope you come back and join us in the spirit of making this place the greatest museum in the world. Thank you.